Thank you very much, Rick. Okay, we've come to the main event of the evening, is to hear our main speakers. The topic is Living a Life of Faith and Joy. But before we hear from our main speakers, Tarak is asked to come forward again. So Tarak, if you would come forward at this time.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, one of our very prominent speaker, Mr. Radaul Jabbar, passed away last week. He was a very brave person. I recall that he used to come on a wheelchair, and he was very regular participant of the forum. So his family members are here, and I request one of them to come forward and say a few words about late Mr. Radaul Jabbar. Please come forward.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, and I guess good afternoon. And dear friends, brothers, and elders, I'm just about to sort of give you a synopsis of my father, a brief synopsis, as some of you may have seen him always on this side of the stage. And he actually passed away at the end of January. He was in the hospital for 2 months. He had a triple bypass surgery at St. Michael's, and he was in rehab. And unfortunately, we are at the mercy of the Almighty, and we thought he was recovering, but he passed away. And certainly what I wanted to tell you was that his life was full of challenges right from the beginning. Obviously, he was born in India, Hyderabad, in 1937, and at the age of 1, he got the virus polio, which impacted his legs, his hands, even his face. And he basically moved around dragging himself on the ground. And because of that, he also was exposed to frequent cold, and one of his ear, he lost hearing in his ear as well. His father was a very good math teacher, so he did a lot of homeschooling. And then at the age of 17, he went to Mumbai for some operations. And that's where his sort of like the star lit, his literary star, because he's an author of 7 books and many international awards. And that's in Mumbai, that's where he completed his chartered accountant and MCOM LLB. While at Mumbai, at the age of 17, he wrote 3 different stories in 3 different names, one of his name and 2 other names. And the publisher was really surprised. He said, how come from this one hospital we have 3 unique stories? And they visited the hospital and they found out that he was the only one that wrote 3 stories. He's written many short stories in many different, and he comes from a big family that spans all continents, many different ethnicities. He met my mother while in Mumbai, because she used to read his stories as well and was a fan of his. And they married. He struggled all his life on his own, lived in one bedroom rental apartment. He used to use, we don't see these things often, calipers and crutches to walk. And he used to actually also drive a scooter in India, hand operator. And even here, he operated his own vehicle, GM van, Safari, adapted for hand mobility. In fact, the last few years he was in law school at U of T and Osgood. So, he came here in 1980, and within a short span of time, he faced some challenges, because back in the 1980s, we really didn't have things like accessibility with building codes and things that we take for granted today. He actually was quite, because I know I was 14 then, I was active with him in many different, chapters. And one of that chapter was a fellowship that he started with the Toronto mayor, some of you may recall Art Eggleton, who is now the senator, Liberal senator. So, he was quite active most of his life. It's ironic, when I look at him and in his last stages, I cannot do justice to his life. I mean, some of us are given full capabilities, but only few, can overcome some of those challenges. I had written quite a bit about him, but like I said, these things I didn't even need to write because I knew him, but I didn't really know him too well as well. He was in order to hide his physical disability, he also hid his emotional openness. He was always wanted to be like, I'm capable of doing everything. He valued independence. He valued hard work. He also valued something that I've known even from Bombay. He was a mediator. He was a harmonizer. He had friends from different cultures and backgrounds and religions. I remember one of my teachers was a Brahmin Pandit who used to come and teach me in India Hindi. And Brahmins usually don't like to touch other people because they see themselves as high caste. But because of the friendship, I used to go to his house all the time, eat from his plate. So he broke through a lot of barriers that we sometimes form based on our religious creed or identity or ethnicity. My mother comes from a different ethnicity completely. They married secretly because the marriage was not accepted by either of their parents, but was afterwards eventually. So he broke many barriers, and that's one thing I saw even when at his when he was retired and so on for a long time. But he had friends from all backgrounds and ethnicities visiting him all the time. He took tenants who had no checking account and had no credit history, and he has had these tenants living in his good condos. These things we found out after he passed away because the tenants came to us saying, "You don't even have a bank account. Can you cash the check for us and take the rent?" So he took in people that no other landlords would take in. So there are stories that many of his friends will tell you in the same way. To me, he personifies to me a personality that rose up to the challenges and tried to break the many different barriers because he came, with a lot of disabilities. And the last 2 months were quite hard. The things that he said, that he opened up were quite hard. He saw my fourth child, my daughter. She was born in October, just once, because he was hospital from December. It's like I said, I can say many things, but I think some of you that know him know that his death was in the front pages of a lot of the newspapers in India and Pakistan. It's something. Sometimes we have to learn lesson, and one of the lessons that I've learned from him is that whether what we believe or what not, or or whether it's our values or political beliefs or the spectrum that we have, we are entitled to have that, but we don't have to. You don't have to have a clash, because there's no such thing as a clash. It's all in medium, and the best values are values of harmony, and integrity and trust. Thank you.
Very good. Very well put.